Again, Jim, Cindy, and Scott, thank you very much for having us here. I'm Doug Barnes, running for City Council Place 2. I was born in Ranger, Texas. It's about 30 minutes south of Austin. Married my high school sweetheart, Sharon. And Sharon and I have been in Waxahachie since 1990. Went to Texas A&M University, finished A&M, and then went to work for Texas Power and Light Company. And so during that period of time, we moved into 4 cities, and we have 4 children, 8 grandchildren, and 4 of the 8 are out of state, so we miss them very much. So when I started to think about running for the city council, I looked at after I finished with Texas A&M, working for Texas Power and Light Company, then I went to work for the city of Waxahachie, and that was 18 years ago. And as Director of Economic Development for the city of Waxahachie, we had 2 goals in mind. First, to make Waxahachie a better place in which to live, and second, to make Waxahachie a better place in which to live in. And so I think we've accomplished those goals, and I look forward to move forward as we get through this discussion to talk about the different questions that we're going to be asked. Thank you very much. It is true that we are growing by leaps and bounds. The vibrant Metroplex is coming our way, and it's coming in a hurry. But we have had extensive growth in our community. In the industrial sector, we've grown immensely. We have something in the neighborhood of 22 to 24 industry that's created 5,500 jobs. Our commercial and retail aspect is growing. If you go back and remember that in the year 2000, the only thing north of 287 on 77 was Chili's and a convenience store. Everything north of that, they were still growing cotton. So in the year 1999 and 2020, Home Depot came to town. And that started the commercial growth. And then in 2006, the Waxahachie Town Center came in, where we have Target, Lowe's, Bell. In 2010, we had the Marketplace, just north of Northgate, where Cotton Patch is today. That has continued to grow. And then in 2015, we had the Waxahachie Marketplace where Academy is. Hunt Properties came in and built that particular center. You look at those centers, and there's anywhere from 500 to 700 jobs within those centers. But more importantly, the commercial are bringing in products that our citizens truly need, so that they don't have to drive into the concrete asphalt jungle of the Metroplex just to get basic services. That's quality of life issues that's been taking place. You look at our housing is really growing. We have a number of lots that have already been approved by the city council to build lots on. As the mayor alluded to, this last year we had close to 700 new residential permits that was permitted in our city, and the builders are selling just about everything they can get their hands on. But with that type growth has given us an opportunity to have a balanced budget, so that no sector within the city has to have the burden of paying taxes. Everybody shares in that. So we're going to continue to have that growth because of the jobs. The U.S. Department of Commerce says that for every retail job in a community, that turns over 7 times in that community with other goods and services just to serve that one job. So that's how growth starts, and that's why industry is so important to come into our community. Now, how are we going to manage all that growth? Well, we have a comprehensive plan. That comprehensive plan is looked at every 5 years. The council has to approve it. And it sets along the zoning applications within our community. Where does industrial one need to go? Commercial, housing, those type things. And then the second part is where we have the transportation corridor. And so that's a development of roads and structures of how are we going to move traffic around in our community, where these growths should go. But the biggest thing in managing the growth has been that about 5 years ago, the city put together the DRC, Developmental Review Committee, so that when a developer or builder or a retailer, manufacturer comes into the community, before they come in and spend any money, they get on this DRC committee. And this committee is made up of directors, fire marshal, those individuals in the city that are responsible for water, wastewater, for traffic control, building inspections, those type things. And so when that developer comes in and sits down and presents that package, the directors know whether or not to say, hey, this is a good deal for our city, or it's not. And if it isn't, and it doesn't meet the vision that the council has set out, then it doesn't come into our city. And that's the biggest reason of how we're going to manage that growth. When you look at the budget, our budget is balanced. And it's balanced because we have these three sectors in our community. The city going through that budget is a real chore and a challenge. That budget process starts in May of each year, and it's finalized in September where the council approves it. Our budget is balanced. We have our CIP program, which is the bigger part of expenditures within that budget. And so we control spending by knowing what we have to spend and where those revenues come from. Basically taxes, property taxes, sales tax, and other fees that we get. And so we're going to continue to have a balanced budget, and we're going to continue to move forward with the growth of the city to be able to prevent the revenues that we needed to provide the services that our citizens truly need. Our tax rate, thank goodness that the current city council lowered that tax rate 2 cents. We normally, in something like that, tax rates, staffing levels with the city, we look at 11 other cities that we are working with, and we use that as a measuring guide of how are we doing in those two areas. In 11 other cities that obviously have tax rates, ours is now the lowest of those 11 other cities. And so I applaud the city council in doing that, but it also, at that rate, gives us the ad valorem taxes that we need to balance the budget, and that's what's important. Relating to the staffing levels, we use the same concept. I guess it's been 3 years that we've looked at staffing levels in the city. But when we do, we look at these other cities to compare how they're doing, because they basically have the same growth rate that we have. And so I would think that in the future, in terms of staffing levels, that we would do a study at least every other year, even if we have to bring a consultant in to make sure that we have that adequate staffing, that one department is not too low, one department is too high, but that can be a guideline to be able to determine how our staffing is done and is it adequate to provide the services that our citizens need. Relating to tax abatements, nobody really likes tax abatements, but the reason we have it is because our competitors give tax abatements. Tax abatements is not corporate welfare. It's an investment by the city. And our abatement is 60% on real property tax and 40% we keep. So the question is it better to get 40%, I'm sorry, is it better to get 40% of nothing than 100% of nothing? I said that right, I think. So anyway, getting industry into this community is huge. We already talked about how important that is. But again, tax rates, tax incentives is truly necessary, and we're going to have to keep those up. Our plan is reviewed every 2 years and has to be approved by the city council. And we also use abatements for commercial, but that's on sales tax. And a while ago, the mayor had mentioned the last 11 years in our community, sales tax has increased 89%. And so we get 2 cents out of the 8 1/4 cent. Well, in order for us to get $18 million in sales tax, our economy has to generate $900 million. And folks, we've hit that level. And we're going to get through this virus, and our economy is going to move forward again. And within the next 2.5 years, we're going to hit the $1 billion mark. And so the services are going to come in. We need tax incentives because our competitors use it. And again, it's an investment.
Any discussion or thought there in terms of tax rate? You were happy with the 66% tax rate that was adopted this last time?
Very much so. And again, I applaud the city council for doing that.
Thank you, Ted.
With that, we will move.
Okay. The vision for the city is continued growth. We live in a unique city. We have maintained our history, our culture. We're envied by other cities, and what we want to do is to continue the growth, make sure that we have a staff that's adequate, make sure that our public safety, which is truly important, so that when we go and we shop, we're going to know that we feel comfortable in doing so. This is a unique city, and we're privileged to live here. Jim, thank you, Sandy, Scott, for allowing us to be here and giving our opinions and directions for our community. For the last 18 years, I've been with the city staff, Director of Economic Development. In that period of time, I've seen the city grow. The city is going to grow immensely. The city has an organization chart. The city staff reports to the city manager. The city manager reports to the council, and the council reports to you, the citizens. I want to do 2 things for you, the citizens. Number 1, keep public safety abreast and foremost, so that when we drive down our streets, we go into our shops, we're going to feel safe. That our fire department is going to be staffed adequately to be able to help. The paramedics are going to be available, and the 911 calls that come in, about 80% of those calls have to do with some type of medical assistance. I've sat on that side of the table, the staff side, for the last 18 years. I want to move over and sit on the other side of the table and be a city councilman for you, the citizens. To do those 2 things so that we can continue to have our city grow, we can have a quality of life, we can preserve our history, we can preserve our culture, and we will be in a city that I like to say, Waxahachie is the nicest community you could ever want to meet. Thank you for having us here.